let's get into our first film review. Mark, what do we got?
Yeah, so Kneecap. Have you heard of the Irish rap band Kneecap?
You know what? When I got invited to come back and follow Sanjeev this week and saw the list of films, I got incredibly excited because about a year ago, an author friend of mine, Guy, we were sort of working on trying to adapt a book of his, and we were thinking about, actors and people who might fill certain roles. And he said, I think I found the perfect actor for this character. I don't know if he's an actor or not. And he sent me this music video by an Irish band called Kneecap, who I'd never heard of at the time. And I watched it, and it was incredibly cinematic. I'll send you a link to it. It's phenomenal. And I think it's a real sort of precursor to what came, because I think a lot of people were surprised that they suddenly had a movie. But actually, they've been making cinematic music videos for some time. I went to see these guys in Glastonbury just gone, and they are, well, they're something else. They're something else.
This is described as the mostly true story of the rise of Kneecap, who are a trio from West Belfast, who play themselves in the film. I'm a big rock biopic fan, and it's always interesting when people play themselves. This was apparently the first Irish language film to play Sundance, where it won the Audience Award. After they turned up in an RUC Land Rover. It then premiered in Ireland at Galway, where it won Best Irish Film, Best Irish Language Film, and the Audience Award. And it's the Irish entry for the Best International Feature at the 97th Oscars. So, starts with Liam getting arrested, refusing to speak English to the police, and he and his friend Naoise have been encouraged to speak Irish, partly by the latter's father, Arlo, who we learn was a Republican paramilitary, played by Michael Fassbender, who may or may not be alive. Anyway, music teacher JJ is called in to translate in the police cell because he speaks the language, and he and his partner are involved in the campaign for the Irish Language Act that recognises Irish as an official language in Northern Ireland. So JJ takes Liam's notebook, and when he reads it, he takes it out of the cell because it's got some incriminating stuff in it. When he reads it, he realizes that they're rapping in Irish, and the lyrics are largely about sort of drugs and sex and the police, but they have real popular potential. And because although these two seem to be troublemakers in inverted commas, they're also really smart. They've got a way of mixing personal history with political rhetoric to iconoclastic effect. Here's a clip.
You've heard of intergenerational trauma, right?
Right.
Our history.
Our history has become
our biology.
It's like the trauma our ancestors suffered
Has inserted itself.
has actually inserted itself into our genetic code. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Psychological
Reverberations. ADHD. ODD.
The troubles.
The troubles? I've got fucking troubles.
So the apparently respectable music teacher gets him into his studio. He provides the beats. They record a track. The track touches a nerve. They start to gig. They need him on stage with them. But he says, well, I'm a teacher. So he starts wearing a balaclava and calling himself DJ Pro-V. Meanwhile, Liam starts dating a Protestant girl who likes him to shout Chucky Allah during moments of intimacy. And meanwhile, the band get targeted. Yeah, the band get targeted by the band get targeted by a group calling themselves Radical Republicans Against Drugs, who threaten to burn down their studio. So, despite the balaclavas and the barbed wire and all that stuff, the politics are very satirical. The band themselves have said that they're ceasefire babies. This is a quote. They said, "We're able to joke about these things that were once traumatizing for people in our community. Every side of the community can take a joke. We don't give people enough credit that people know how to have a laugh." They've also said it doesn't take much to court controversy in the North. And of course, both they and the film have been controversial. Although the overall message is broadly communal, and they've talked about bringing people together and celebrating the Irish language. There was one interview with them in which they said we have more in common with working class people in Belfast, whatever side of the divide, than rich people in Dublin, and then started talking about workers' revolution. So the film is written and directed by Richard Pepiat, who is a non-Irish speaking, as they describe him, Englishman. This is not the first time Englishman has made money out of Irishman, making his feature debut. And as befits the story at its core, the film is raucous, it's unruly, it's endearingly shambolic. The on-screen subtitling, because it's largely Irish language, is done with wit. The whole thing's got a lot of energy to it. It's got a bit of a Trainspotting vibe. There's one moment when they've taken some ketamine, which is then described on screen via stop motion animation, which is quite inspired. Now, there are some people who will hate. I mean, I have friends in Belfast who I know wouldn't go and see this, and plenty who would love it. The band are surprisingly good at playing themselves, and that's not something to take for granted. I mean, let us not forget that a very famous chef, Gordon Ramsay, was in the film playing himself, and he was absolutely terrible at it. In the great pantheon of pop biopics, I think this is definitely one of the more distinctive offerings. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Good Vibrations, and I like the way that Good Vibrations is kind of completely kind of it's okay, this is the situation that this story comes out of, but actually it's all to do with the music. And in the case of this, it's very likable, if sometimes headache-inducingly shambolic. I mean, it is like exactly as you'd expect from the music. It's very, very in your face, and it's very easy to see why it is that it's become a real festival audience award winner, which is always a kind of, it's all the things that win audience awards at festivals. That always tells you a lot about what the film's like. Are you going to go see it, Ben?
I saw it last night at the Notting Hill Gate.
Oh, Ben, you've seen
cinema.
it. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had.
It's okay. No, I mean, it was a special preview. I had no idea that I thought it was out on this day when you're hearing this podcast, the Friday, if you've got this podcast at that point. I actually managed to see it a couple nights before. Listen, I was already a massive Kneecap fan, and I think the wave of energy and positivity around this film matches what's going on with their music. The timing of it is brilliant for them. So they're increasing their following massively. I looked around the cinema, and it was such a range of ages and people and different backgrounds. I was sort of pleasantly surprised by how busy it was and how varied the audience was. And I have to say, I enjoyed it immensely from start to finish. The Trainspotting reference that he said, I literally thought the word Trainspotting entered my head as soon as DJ Provi dived into that bin. I thought he was just going to keep going. When he goes to retrieve the acid
then
tabs.
come back up holding it exactly.
I really thought because it really felt like a nod to Trainspotting, and you're right that the sort of chaos and energy of Trainspotting is definitely within it. I laughed all the way through, and the poignant moments hit me as well. The shambolic nature of it, I think, didn't take away. It sort of added to it.
No, but it has to be. The story has to have that sense to it.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of music biopics, mainly because of the chubby whom thing, which you've covered in some detail over the years. So for me, it always needs to have something different, a different kind of approach to it, and this with them playing themselves, I think, is perhaps the thing. I mean, the other high watermark for me is Love and Mercy. I absolutely loved that film. And again, if you look at that film, the approach is slightly quirkier than most music biopics with two different people playing Brian Wilson, I loved it, honestly, start to finish.